Thanks for tuning in. You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. It is another fantastic season coming up upon us. I guess fantastic is kind of depending on who you're cheering for, what you want to see. I'm going to try to lay out some scenarios for that today. I'm Matt Edwards. You are in the jungle. Appreciate you. If you're new here, welcome in. If you're coming back, thanks for being here once again. Today we're going to talk about the division at large. I'm going to give you how I think the division will shake out. What will the Steelers do with apparently an upgraded Aaron Rodgers? Like, it seems so weird that they've been 10-7 2 years in a row. Now they upgrade in a lot of positions. What are they going to do? Baltimore, like, what more can they do in the regular season? I feel like they could go 16-1 in the regular season and people would still be like, yeah, you haven't done it in the playoffs, and that might be fair. And then, of course, if you're here, the Cincinnati Bengals are probably your main concern, and they've got a lot of questions as well. I could see it going so many different ways for all of these teams. The Browns are in this division too, but, you know, I don't think we're necessarily too many possibilities going on for the Cleveland Browns, but we will talk about them. So here's what we're going to do today. Best case scenario for each AFC North team. Worst case scenario for each AFC North team. I'm not going to do 20 minutes on each. We'll do maybe 5 or 6 on each, maybe a little longer on the Bengals. But it's an interesting exercise. We're kind of at the point in the season where, for me anyways, we're in the prediction game. It's kind of fun to think about what can be, and a lot of this stuff, probably by middle of October, 6 weeks from now, will be going, yep, or nope, one of the two. So let's get into it. Here's the one rule for this. No injuries. Obviously, like if you're Baltimore or Cincinnati, the worst case scenario would be an injury to your quarterback. Obviously, if you're the Steelers, the worst case scenario would be losing a few of your key defenders earlier in the season. Injuries, we're pretending those don't exist. It'd be awesome if they didn't, but that's the one rule here, is we're going to act as if everyone who is healthy as of week 1 is healthy for the season. That obviously won't be the case, but the one thing we cannot predict are injuries. So let's get into it. Let's start with the reigning division champion, the Baltimore Ravens. Best case scenario for Baltimore is winning the Super Bowl. I don't think anyone would dispute that, right? Like, they're there every offseason, every November and December. People are talking about this is probably the best team in football. Derrick Henry looks like he lost 2 years off his age in the month of December all of a sudden. Lamar Jackson really picking people apart. The defense is mean. Okay, best case scenario, this is a Super Bowl winning team. It has been every year. Last year, they're a drop pass away from going to the AFC Championship again. They can do that. Lamar Jackson, can he maybe play with a bit of a chip on his shoulder this year because of the reason that he hasn't had the postseason success and he kind of got pushed out for MVP last year? I don't know. Where do you find the motivation with this team this year if you're them? Maybe Zay Jones can find another level. He's been really good for them so far, but I don't think anyone's putting him in that top tier, and it's a team that has struggled to find a receiver for so long who they can depend on. Derrick Henry, he's going to continue to be Derrick Henry until proven otherwise, right? It's insane that those two men, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, are in the same backfield. But these are all reasons they can get back there. I mean, a top 10 defense last year, and they go and pick up Malachi Starks and Mike Green. I mean, they've already got Kyle Hamilton, maybe the best safety in football. Malachi Starks joins in. Mike Green, who a lot of people mocked to the Bengals in round 1, falls to them in round 2. I mean, they're loaded. They're absolutely loaded all over the place. The Super Bowl, best case scenario, they win the Super Bowl. They're as capable as anyone, seemingly, to hoist that Lombardi Trophy in February in San Francisco this year. If you were wondering where the game will be played, that's right. Now I got to fact check that. I'm like 97% sure that's right. What are we looking at here? Super Bowl 60? Super Bowl 60 indeed, and yes, I see the Golden Gate logo in the bridge. We don't have a halftime performer yet, but that will be at Levi's Stadium, February 8th, 2026. They'll probably add some flights from Cincinnati to San Francisco for that one once the time rolls around. So anyways, that's the best case scenario for Baltimore. Is on February 8th, they're playing in the Super Bowl. They can win the Super Bowl. If you can get there, you can win it. Worst case scenario, the floor is really high for them, right? Remember, injuries aren't an option here. So worst case scenario is they lose in the first round once again. First round, second round, whatever round. If they don't get at least, I would say no wins in the playoffs is like their worst case scenario, barring injuries. If Lamar's healthy, if they're majority healthy, this team will make the playoffs again. Whether it's as a division winner or as a wild card, we'll see. But if they're intact, they are going to go to the playoffs again. Thing about it is, man, like, if you're Baltimore, that's the problem. Is your worst case scenario as a playoffs. The floor is so high for them at this point. I think part of the worst is maybe they get a little mentally defeated. Maybe it starts to wear on them that every year for 5 years now, they feel they're as good as anyone in football, yet they haven't been to a Super Bowl. I think Marlon Humphrey talked about that. Their cornerback talked about that in the offseason. Like, wow, we're really good. We're really putting in the work. And we don't even have an AFC Championship banner to show for it. Another thing, worst case scenario we're talking for Baltimore is they might look old. Roquan Smith didn't always look his best last year. When you play like he does, that happens in a hurry. They still have Kyle Van Noy over there, Jair Alexander. They've added him. They've got some veterans over there. I mean, even Derrick Henry, he's got to hit the wall at some point, right? He's 31 years old. I mean, 30 used to be a death sentence for running backs. All of a sudden, he's 31, still looks as good as anyone in the league. By the way, and I said this multiple times, Derrick Henry's stats last year, nearly identical to Saquon Barkley's. For some reason, Derrick Henry didn't get nearly the love that Saquon did for a season. That I've talked about that at length. I don't get it. I do not get that. I understand that he plays in an offense with Lamar Jackson, maybe the greatest playmaker we've seen this century. So when you do that, maybe you don't, that still befuddles me. But he's 31 years old. So there's that. Best case scenario for Baltimore, they can win the Super Bowl. I think everyone knows that, no matter who you root for, you have to admit that. Worst case scenario, first round exit. They start to look old. They start to mentally think, we're 12-3 coming down the stretch again, but here come the playoffs. Here comes that terrible, unexplainable Lamar pick in the first half again. Here comes Mark Andrews dropping the 2-point conversion tying pass. There's a lot that can happen, mostly good. Like, you're in a good position if you're Baltimore and your worst case scenario is losing, going 0-1 in the playoffs, but that's just where this franchise is at right now. Team 2, team number 1 in our hearts, if you're listening to this podcast, is Cincinnati Bengals. So best case scenario for them versus worst case. Best case, look, they can win a Super Bowl. I know if you're not a Bengals fan or if you don't follow the team closely, maybe you roll your eyes a little bit there. Keep in mind, they're the last team to go to the Super Bowl representing the AFC who is not the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know it was a bit ago, but I've got it right here. I don't know if you can see it or not. Super Bowl 56, they were just there. 2022 is when the game was played? The 2021 season? They're the last team other than Kansas City to get there. And that core, the important pieces, the established pieces are still there. Joe and Jamar, we know that. They've lost some guys, yeah, obviously. Jesse Bates is not there. DJ Reader's not there. But the guys you need, arguably the best quarterback in the league in Joe Burrow, probably the best receiver in the league, if not, he's number 2 in Jamar Chase, they're there. So best case scenario for the Cincinnati Bengals, getting to the Super Bowl. What does that entail? Number 1, your established pieces remain your established pieces. Joe, Jamar, T, we know what they can do. They keep doing it. I will stand that will happen. What else they need to happen that maybe isn't quite as certain would be some of the younger guys stepping up. I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt, I was banging the drum for him last year. I still think he can get back to where we saw him in 2023. Last year had an incredible interception of Patrick Mahomes in week 2, and it was just like things kind of fell apart from there. So Cam Taylor-Britt, Myles Murphy, Dylan Fairchild, the rookie 3rd rounder who is going to play guard for them. Those are the guys we need to see perform above expectations. They need some guys to step up. This is what goes into the best case scenario for them. This is how they win a Super Bowl, is if they get, and they've kind of been doing this, right? They did this last year where they kind of put some hope in some guys and it didn't work out. They hoped Sheldon Rankins could replace DJ Reader. No, not particularly close. They hoped that, I'm not going to go through the list right now because I don't want to dive into that. I'll do that. I've done that at length. Last year, that's all I did throughout January and late December. They've got the established pieces. It's what the Bengals will hope to happen. Guys like Cam Taylor-Britt, get that confidence back. I'm certain that's all that was wrong with him. The ability is there. Dylan Fairchild, can he be a quality starter at the guard spot protecting Joe Burrow? Myles Murphy, you've been in Cincinnati. This is year 3. You've got 3 sacks in your first 2 years, 28th overall pick. We got to see some stuff. Can Al Golden get some of the guys on defense going? I said it, the Bengals don't need to be, a top 15 defense. Can you get to 17 or 18 and give this offense, a week here or there where they can score 27 points and still win a football game. And they got to catch some breaks. I mean, last year, people kind of dog on the Bengals because they missed the playoffs, and that's fair. But the 3 losses, they lost to Baltimore twice and Kansas City. Those 3 losses came by a total of 5 points. 5 points. Like, I won't go down the rabbit hole of how it happened, but, Kansas City, last-second field goal. Baltimore, in overtime. The Bengals missed a field goal. A mismanaged overtime drive by Zach Taylor. Just a few plays here and there, and they're looking at 11-6 instead of 9-8. You got to catch some breaks. So that's that. For the Bengals' best-case scenario, I'll say it, they can win the Super Bowl. I think you got Joe Burrow, you can win the Super Bowl. He said it. The Super Bowl window is Joe Burrow's entire career. I will stand by that. So those are the things we need to see from them. See some guys who maybe you don't expect to play big roles. They need to have a few breakout players. They need to see their established pieces remain their established pieces. You feel really good about that. And look, you just got to catch some breaks in the league. I mean, that's, I know a real man makes his own luck, but the fact of the matter is, officiating, I won't get into it right now, but New England week 1, the officials came out the next day and said the touchdown that would have won them the game that got called back should have actually been a touchdown. Right there, they're llooking at 10-7 and they make the playoffs. So there's that. But they can win the Super Bowl. Worst case scenario is you just get last year again. You get, 9-8, 8-9. This defense has got to have someone step up. Al Golden, the new defensive coordinator, has got to figure some of those guys out because they've got guys who have been drafted high. They've got Trey Hendrickson to kind of be the guy who you can count on to make plays. Who can just step up and be your C+, B- guys? Because right now there's too many D+ guys on that defensive side of the ball who can turn their D+ into a C+. If we don't figure it out, if the Bengals don't figure it out, they're going to be in the same scenario they were the last 2 years, going 9-8. The other thing you worry about, worst case scenario, is some of the veterans fading. Logan Wilson's been talked about, hasn't looked as sharp down the stretch last year, looking a little slower in the preseason. Does that remain? We'll find out. Geno Stone, brought him over from Baltimore last year to play safety. Didn't look great all the time. Started to look great, not great, started to look decent, gets hurt against Vegas. BJ Hill, he's been a little beat up. He's getting on the older side. These veterans they have on that defensive side of the ball, we saw it happen last year with Sam Hubbard in a hurry. When some of those guys start to go downhill, how fast does it happen? And when you have a defense like that, you can't really sustain the impact you could if you've got guys in the pipeline like Baltimore does. Because I don't know how good you feel about a lot of the young defenders on that defensive side of the ball. We like Shamar Stewart. He looked good in the preseason. But I've seen Miles Murphy look really good in the preseason. So the worst case scenario for the Bengals, same old, same old. I don't think they're worse than an 8-9 team. I think worst case scenario for the Bengals is 8-9. Really, with Joe Burrow playing every game, I don't even know if it's that. But I would have thought that last year too. So worst case scenario, same old, same old. Best case scenario, it's a team that can win the Super Bowl. And it comes down to one of two things. Best case scenario for the Bengals, some guys step up. Some guys take on that role to make this team a little bit better. Another 2 games. And they're at 11-6 instead of 9-8. Worst case scenario, it kind of goes the opposite way. You don't get the young guys to step up, and some of your veterans, some of your leaders like Logan Wilson, like BJ Hill, start to go downhill a bit. That'll make you things go very poorly very quickly. So, we got 2 teams so far, and I say they can both win the Super Bowl. And why not? You've got 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. Arguably, certainly 2 of the top 4, right? The big 4. Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen, Joseph Lee Burrow. Those are the guys. So 2 of them play in the AFC North. None of them play in Cleveland, Ohio. We'll get to them next. Boy, it's going to be pretty wild when/if Deshaun Watson is eligible to come back. I don't really have much on that. I just see that I wrote his name down here. So, best case scenario for Cleveland is probably around 500. Probably 8-9. Best case scenario for the Cleveland Browns this year, I think, is 8-9. I think Kevin Stefanski is a really good head coach. I think anyone would say that. I think he's kind of done for Cleveland what Marvin Lewis did in the early 2000s for Cincinnati. It was a team that had struggled for a long time. He brought some stability, brought some professionalism, got guys to buy in. Obviously, he's, he has won a playoff game in Pittsburgh. Marvin could not say that. It's kind of a similar trajectory for what those 2 guys have done for franchises that before they got there, they struggled. Kevin Stefanski is a really good head coach. Maybe he gets some more freedom without that weight of Deshaun Watson. Maybe he can now kind of do what he wants instead of having to, you got to build your team around your quarterback in the NFL. Deshaun Watson didn't really give you a lot. So maybe now that weight of Deshaun is gone, at least for a while, maybe Kevin Stefanski can make some magic with Joe Flacco, and then we'll see what happens down the stretch. Jim Schwartz, defensive side of the ball, maybe the best coordinator defensively in the league. So those are the reasons. I mean, look, they still have Myles Garrett. He's still awesome. Denzel Ward banged up all the time, but he's really good. Their offensive line's still solid. David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, not a bad 1-2 receiving punch to have. So there's that. Worst case scenario for Cleveland is quite simple. It's a total disaster. Like, you got Joe Flacco, he's 2, whatever. Let's look it up. Can you guys look that up for me real quick? Joe Flacco's age? I mean, he's got to be 40. Who's older, him or I just put that on Twitter. So Joe Flacco is 40 years old. He'll be 41 in January. So 40-year-old Flacco, who has played well. And then you've got 41. Aaron Rodgers will turn 42 on December 2nd. So Rodgers is slightly older than Joe Flacco. Yeah, I mean, if Flacco, I know injuries aren't a part of this, but it's hard to imagine a 40-year-old quarterback holding up the entire season. It's hard to imagine you think you're really progressing as a franchise. I mean, if they start out, let's say 1-6, what's the point in keeping Flacco under center? So do you roll with Dylan Gabriel? Do you roll with Shedeur Sanders? Does Deshaun Watson come back? Is there going to be a situation where the fans and the media are chomping back at the team about, do you want Shedeur Sanders? Do you want Deshaun Watson? This could get really ugly. I mean, like big-time disaster. It's one thing to be a really bad football team and just suck on the field. The Browns seem to welcome, under Jimmy Haslam, they seem to welcome these kind of flashy, insane headlines, and they're really primed to let them happen again. If the fans and the media start to call for Shedeur, if Deshaun Watson gets in there and they say, hey, we're paying him all this money, let's kick the tires one last time, it could get ugly. And guess what? If Deshaun Watson does go out there in Cleveland as starter, fans are going to let him know how they feel, right? So things get really ugly for Cleveland. Best case scenario, I would say, is 8-9. Worst is just total disaster. Total disaster. Even if they're, get 4 or 5 wins on the year, things could get ugly. Things could get ugly in Cleveland, and they've invited that. They've invited that by by signing Deshaun Watson, by the Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel thing. Just you're asking for the drama, and they got it. So there we are. So not as rosy as a best case scenario for Cleveland. Let's go to Western Pennsylvania, where is probably my spiciest take here. And I would say this. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, best case scenario, I think they can get to the AFC Championship. I really do. Now look, I know that most people won't agree with me there, but they've been 10-7 2 years in a row. 10-7 is pretty solid. They've made the playoffs 2 years in a row with, I don't even remember who, Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, a combination, of all these guys. And I really can't remember who played in the playoff game for them last year at quarterback. I don't think it was Russell Wilson. Don't get old. Your brain starts to melt. So they lost to Baltimore. It was Russell Wilson. Very forgettable performance. So, yep. They got beat by Baltimore 28-14 last year in the wild card. Justin Fields threw a pass. I mean, Russell Wilson was terrible. 20-29, 270, 2 touchdowns. Took 4 sacks. They could not run the ball. 11 carries for 29 yards. But anyways, I think they could get to the AFC Championship. I really do. They've been 10-7 with no quarterback in a conference where it's low. I just said the top 4 quarterbacks, they all play in the AFC. 2 of them in their division. Steelers always overachieve. They've made the playoffs 2 years in a row. They get rid of the headache that was George Pickens. They bring in DK Metcalf, who can be somewhat of a headache, but at least he's shown the talent to be worth the headache at times, right? They allowed 20 points per game last year. That was 8th best They didn't get worse, right? They added Jalen Ramsey in the secondary. They've already got Joey Porter Jr. back there. They've got Darius Slay back there. Like, they go and get Derek Harmon in the first round. I mean, they're going to be pretty solid. And I'm not even, I haven't mentioned Cam Hayward. I haven't mentioned TJ Watt. I haven't mentioned Alex Highsmith. Like, they're pretty loaded on defense. They're pretty good on defense. They just need Aaron Rodgers to be I think people forget how good Aaron Rodgers was just a few years ago. I know he's old. I know he tore his Achilles. But man, you can't tell me that he can't pick you apart at the line of scrimmage from time to time. You can't tell me that he's not going to be able to make some plays. He still likes to launch it up there. DK Metcalf is a physical guy. They've still got Pat Freiermuth at tight end. We've seen him go up and get jump balls. They added Jonnu Smith. Like, they've built a pretty solid offense here. And the defense was already really, really good. So I think they can get to the AFC Championship. I think whoever they would end up playing, whether it be, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Buffalo, obviously Kansas City, I don't think they can win because I really don't think they can get home field. I mean, look, if you can get there, you can win. But I would say that's their ceiling. Like, you would be happy if you're a Steelers fan and they get to the AFC Championship. But yeah, I think they could get to the AFC Championship, and why not? I mean, they've been 2 wins away from it 2 years in a row, and now they get better at quarterback. They seemingly get better on defense. So, now, worst case scenario, which people will be happier to hear about, is that I would actually say that their worst case scenario is probably the worst of all of these, because they probably have the widest range of possibilities. And of course, this is my opinion. I could be wrong. Worst case scenario for Pittsburgh is they just can't hang. They end up with like the 11th overall draft pick, which, you can't get a stud there, but you really didn't do anything in the season either. Aaron Rodgers turns 42 in December, I just mentioned. Gets cold, man. It gets cold in Baltimore. It gets cold in Pittsburgh. It gets cold in Cleveland and Cincinnati and Buffalo and Kansas City. We have seen down the stretch Manning and Brady, when that weather gets cold, those 40-year-old muscles and bones don't stretch like they used to. We have seen some of the older guys struggle in that cold weather, especially Rodgers. I mean, I know he does all the, stuff to take care of his body, and that's great, but we've seen guys really go downhill when it gets cold in the colder months when they hit that 40-year-old age. So, yeah, I think that's their worst-case scenario, is they end up, I could see them going into December being like 7-5 and then end up going 8-9 on the year. I could totally see that happening. They get, somewhere between like the 8th and 13th pick, and, you do what you want with it, but then you're still in a situation where you need a quarterback. You probably don't get a game-changing, franchise-changing player with that pick, and you just spent, you went out and got DK Metcalf. You paid him a lot. You just paid TJ Watt a lot of money, and you end up in a position where going into the offseason, you don't have a quarterback, and by the way, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are still in your division. So props to the Steelers, to continue trying, despite the fact that they have Joe and Lamar in the division, they're still going out there and swinging for the fences in the offseason. So, whatever. So that's where we're at. I think 2 teams in this division can win the Super Bowl. I think 3 of them can get to the AFC Championship. I think 1 of them probably will get to the AFC Championship. And I think the Cleveland Browns will suck. So that's how we go. Here are my predictions. Predictions in the AFC North. Again, this is a Bengals-themed podcast. You probably know that. But I don't have the Bengals winning the AFC North. I've got Baltimore winning it at 12-5. They've been so good in the regular season for so many years. I think you almost have to kind of pencil them in there. I've got the Bengals going 11-6. I've got the Bengals winning the playoffs. I've got Baltimore winning the division, but I will bet you money that the Bengals, if they both get in, the Bengals would advance farther in the playoffs. One team thrives down the stretch. We saw it with the Bengals at the end of last year, right? Bengals down the stretch, how many did they win in a row? I want to say 7. They lost to Pittsburgh in that first game of December, and then so maybe it was 6. 2, 4, it's only 5. Yeah, you lose 3 in a row. So yeah. At any rate, we saw the Bengals go on a tear when they needed to. This is a team that time and time again, when they need to, with Joe Burrow, they turn it on in a hurry. Baltimore, kind of the opposite. They've done everything there is to do in the regular season. Their quarterback has 2 MVP trophies. They've got nothing in the postseason to show for it. They hosted the AFC Championship a few years ago. Did not go their way. So I've got Baltimore going 12-5, Bengals going 11-6, but I will bet you that when January rolls around, if they both make the playoffs, the Bengals advance deeper into the playoffs than Baltimore will. One of them thrives down the stretch. That's Joe Burrow and the Bengals. One of them seemingly trips over their own feet, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. So Baltimore 12-5, Cincinnati 11-6, and I will have Pittsburgh going 10-7 for a third straight season. I put Cleveland in there at 4-13. They'll be right around there probably. So that's where we're at. I think those are the best and worst case scenarios. I mean, it's pretty good. Really good division. I mean, Pittsburgh and Baltimore ran as well as any division or any team in football. Bengals are probably more middle of the pack. Browns are low on that totem pole, but it's always a slugfest in the AFC North. And, let me know what you think. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. Any comments are always appreciated. I respond, not that timely at responding, but I do respond to just about every single one. So, I'm going to have something else coming out. What is this? This one will come out on Tuesday, which is today, and I'll have something else coming out on Thursday, more Bengals heavy, so if you want to tune in for that, it'll be fun. My name is Matt Edwards. You can find me on Twitter, aka X, aka whatever you want to call it, at Matt Edwards. And that is that. We will see you again here in a few days. Enjoy this first week of the regular season. Eagles, Cowboys on a Friday night. I suppose on that Thursday show, I'll give a Super Bowl prediction at the end if you want to go check that out. And if you don't, that's fine too. Thanks for making it this deep into the podcast. So we'll do it again soon. Football season's upon us, the most wonderful time of the year. Thanks for tuning in. Hoo-day forever.